Hello, everybody. I'm Mango Thunderslice, and today I'm going to be talking about Bitcoin. This is really Bitcoin's heyday. I've been a nerd all my life in one degree or another, and I've been watching this thing since pretty much 2010 and 11. Never bought any back then because it wasn't. I didn't have any money to really be playing around in speculations anyway, and But even though I never got into it until recently, as far as actually buying Bitcoin and holding some, I've been watching it this whole time, and it's always been clear to me what the potential of this technology is, and it's just really exciting to see it reaching its ascendance, and people from the investment world coming in. There's billions and billions of dollars being poured into cryptocurrencies, not just Bitcoin, but Ethereum and Litecoin and Dash and all these others. It's really exciting, and it's funny to see people who are really invested and bullish on the stock market come out and say, "Oh, look at this Bitcoin, it's a bubble." And I won't necessarily dispute that. Okay, parabolic moves are not sustainable in price, and Bitcoin just whoop shot up almost to 2,800 and then pulled back. I bought some Bitcoin after I saw it run up to almost $1,900, several weeks ago. I knew that, okay, this is it now. This is not just a larger subset of American nerds coming into this. This is some serious money pouring in. And it's really beautiful to witness exactly the value that Bitcoin poses, not just, for transaction within, say, a Western liberalized economy, but in places like China, where President Xi Jinping comes in with these anti-corruption laws, and basically all of a sudden the shady Chinese banking system, just as shady as the banking system over here in many ways, all of a sudden, these bankers and these people speculating in their own Chinese credit bubble, they start throwing all their money out of the country in any way they can. In Vancouver real estate or Bitcoin, Bitcoin had the ability to bypass the currency controls put on by the Chinese government. And that is a perfect illustration of the value. You can't move very easily, okay? I just read some headline about some, I guess, South Koreans that were caught. There were 53 of them that were caught smuggling literally tons of gold in their rectums, okay? Which is easier, smuggling gold in your ass or sending a Bitcoin, all right? Market bulls are making fun of Bitcoin because it's a bubble. That's hilarious. Then you've got the people who are not necessarily stock market bulls, but are like gold bugs and are all about gold, and silver and all the precious metals, which is totally fine. Precious metals have been, stores of value and mediums of exchange, aka money, for 5,000 plus years. The point is that precious metals will retain their position as a store of value, but in a global economy where, my transactions more and more are not, I use cash at the supermarket, but ultimately currency is going digital, and we have a choice of whether we want to go with the government digital currency, and they can hijack, if we wait long enough, they'll just hijack the blockchain and just make their own government digital Bitcoin, right? Assuming that they're smart enough, which is not necessarily a good assumption. But, so precious metals are going to retain their value, and it's funny to me to see all these gold bugs and talking so much shit on Bitcoin. It's like, calm down, take a breath, okay? They are not mutually exclusive, okay? The future of currency is the mixture of precious metals as a store of value, tangible, and something you can hold yourself in a safe or in some registered storage facility or whatever. That's not going away. But you can't send an ounce of gold or a gram of gold to somebody in China instantaneously. With Bitcoin, absolutely you can. And yeah, you can do that sort of with the banking system, but yeah, hope you like paying fees, because you're going to be doing that, especially for larger transactions. And so again, people need to stop fighting against each other and realize that the greater goal is creating an honest money system, okay? A money system that isn't beholden to this group of, sick scumbags, this Khazarian mafia, the satanic cabal at the top of the pyramid. basically playing around with all the different versions of funny money and making themselves a nice hefty profit on all these multi-$100 billion carry trades. Wealth can be achieved virtuously in many ways, but this is just unearned. They're just skimming the cream off the top of the human, species all the time with this money system. They don't have to work a day in their freaking lives. And if they're born connected to the financial system, they have the benefit of seigniorage. Seigniorage is basically the concept that when new money is printed, it is most useful to the people who get access to it first. Okay, revolutionary concept, right? If you're the one printing money, your friends are going to be benefited more than, some other person's friends who aren't connected to your printing press network. Okay, so what's beautiful here is the seigniorage for Bitcoin goes to the nerds who bought in at the beginning. And you know what? If anybody deserves to have a whole bunch of windfall gains on this planet, I'm totally cool with the nerds of planet Earth getting it. You know what? I didn't buy in, but I was definitely part of the internet kind of vibe that supported it during that time without necessarily buying in. And there's plenty of people who actually did, and they mined Bitcoin back when it was freaking $5. And now they're like millionaires. And you know what? That's great. I'd much rather have them be millionaires than create another Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates or any of these twats. Let's see the money, the seigniorage power go to the nerds and the miners. That's totally cool. So that's it. The people who are attacking Bitcoin need to just take a breath and realize that, if you don't fully understand the technology, don't talk shit on it, okay? Because you're speaking from ignorance. And, go learn about it. It's very, very interesting technology and decentralized money system. It literally is an anarchist dream come true. So the title of this video is the Deep State Attacking Bitcoin? And you'll forgive me for using a clickbait headline. I don't actually believe that a pullback from 2,800 parabolic price spike is necessarily a sign of the deep state intervention in the Bitcoin, cryptocurrency markets. But that begs the question of why Bitcoin is special as a speculation as regards to the stock market and, options and ETFs and all that shit that's, priced in US dollars and you can buy through the stock exchanges, is that everything connected to paper money at this stage in the game, it wasn't always this way, but at this point, everything in the market of paper currency is rigged. It's totally rigged, okay? They've got basically a mechanism by which infinite money can come into the system and basically manipulate the price of this or that asset. In general, they've been just slowly bidding up the price of everything over these last 9 years. Easy Credit bankrolled the whole Obama, debt binge. And, now the Federal Reserve is raising interest rates. And, us in the libertarian anarchist community are very aware of the Federal Reserve and its shady origins and, all the sketchy stuff that goes on with it. And basically that they have the power to create the money of the US dollar, and basically that's a tremendous power because it takes them nothing to create the money, but they can give the money and get whatever they want in return in terms of tangible goods, valuable services, whatever it is. They can just print money and get what they want in terms of real value. They use the creation of money and they use certain intermediaries to inject that money into the system. And one of the main, purposes of this, as far as manipulating the price of asset classes is gold, okay? And, the gold bugs, of course, are very aware of this, that basically gold used to be, the definition of the word dollar is a unit of measurement of gold originally, okay? And now we changed the value of a dollar, and in old times that would be people would, you can't change the length of a meter, nor can you change the value of a dollar. A value is a fixed amount of gold. But over time it just became known as, the dollar was synonymous with the, US dollar, the US currency, which then became an elastic currency. It wasn't backed by gold, but back in the day it used to be. And you could redeem your cash for gold. Basically, paper money was originally just gold certificates. The Federal Reserve was created in 1913, okay? And there was a lot of, speculative bubbles just increased, and, then the Great Depression happened, basically proving that there was no point to the Federal Reserve anyway. It didn't make anything better. It just gave power to a few people over the many. But then what was even more important, arguably, than the Federal Reserve Act of 1913 was the Gold Reserve Act of 1934. And this was basically when FDR confiscated all the gold in the country. Basically, he sent out May 1st, 1933. FDR sent out an executive order, essentially, that all gold had to be turned into the banks and exchanged for US dollars. So FDR and the cabal basically stole all the gold from the American citizenry. They took it all in for themselves, and then they manipulated the value of the gold and the dollar. So basically, they gave themselves a massive windfall profit by taking all the gold and then adjusting its value to their benefit. What was created as a result of the Gold Reserve Act of 1934 in the United States was something called the Exchange Stabilization Fund. And this is something that the deep state really doesn't want you to know much about, because this is essentially how they rig the markets. Is the Exchange Stabilization Fund. It is part of the United States Treasury. The Secretary of the Treasury in the United States runs the Exchange Stabilization Fund, and it serves as this slush fund, multi-hundred billion dollar, probably trillions of dollars, nobody knows. This is the source of the black budget for the CIA and all the clandestine operations of the intelligence community, right? This is how they get their infinite money, is through the Exchange Stabilization Fund. The Exchange Stabilization Fund uses the New York Fed as kind of like a cutout. The New York Fed basically supplies infinite created money through now basically it's high frequency trading firms like Citadel. Basically they use robots to trade stocks and bonds and all this shit multiple thousands of times per second. Okay, they even set up cell phone towers right next to the stock exchange so they can get their orders placed like 1 microsecond sooner, because they've got computers just reading headlines on the internet and making instantaneous decisions based upon it. So you've got the Exchange Stabilization Fund basically providing money through the New York Fed to affiliated trading firms using robots to manipulate the market. If they initiate a whole bunch of transactions for sell, even if otherwise the rest of the world is bidding up the price of gold, they can use robots to basically bid down the future price of gold, and then all of a sudden it smashes the price down. And for years and years and years, this has infuriated many a gold bug, at least those who are in it for the speculation. The people who are just buying the physical metal to stack it are pretty happy with that, because it just means you can buy the metal for a cheaper price for even longer. So there's different, strategic responses even to the financial manipulation. But this is the mechanism by which the CIA and all this shady shit in the government gets their money, is through the Exchange Stabilization Fund. They pour money into firms like Citadel, and they basically rig all the markets. And because they have the inside knowledge, they can make huge profits off of basically just knowing what's going to happen. This kind of, begs the question. I don't believe that the deep state is attacking Bitcoin right now. I think it's just a blow-off, consolidation before Bitcoin approaches its next rise into the stars. I do think it's a little interesting how the price in US dollars of Bitcoin was smashed down. And for almost no reason. It's at least the impetus for the selling kind of came out of nowhere. But again, it was going parabolic. It was due for a correction, and personally, I'm just using it as an opportunity to reallocate more savings to cryptocurrencies. But it is interesting, because if the Exchange Stabilization Fund is using its big infinite money, rigging the market power to batter down the price of gold, specifically because a rising gold price would signal to the world that there is significant trouble with the world economy or whatever, the logic stands that if Bitcoin becomes large enough to actually pose a serious threat to the financial system as an alternative to it, it's very possible that, these exchange stabilization funds, Ben Bernanke over at Citadel is going to start trading Bitcoin just to batter its price down. Who knows? But this is the thing. in the rigged financial markets, they create all the mechanisms by which they rig the game. So they don't actually sell physical gold, so they probably don't even have any to sell. They sell futures of gold. So they bet that in the future gold is going to go down, and they initiate all these futures contracts. But there's no such thing as futures contracts for Bitcoin, at least not yet. So they would have to basically buy a whole bunch of Bitcoin and just sell it. Like the New York Fed and the Exchange Stabilization Fund start selling Bitcoins, at least, there's still somebody buying them, and at least, I guess they're providing a valuable service for once. So a little more context on the Exchange Stabilization Fund and why it's so important to the functioning of the empire. So, basically it was created in 1934, the Gold Reserve Act. Okay, so the United States government stole all the gold from the citizens, revalued the price of gold, made a whole bunch of profits for themselves. And at the end of World War II, the United States actually physically held the vast majority of gold on the planet, and so had a lot of clout, a lot of sway when it came to international matters of finance, especially because, the American side, the Western side, won World War II, supposedly, and, then we brought over all the Nazis and put them in high levels of positions of power in the United States government. So, it's arguable to say who won. Point is that after that happened, gold was revalued. Okay, the United States was essentially on a paper money system, and if any American citizens, they essentially had to use just the paper money of the U.S. dollar. It was actually forbidden to use gold as currency after FDR made it so. But they continued to devalue the value of the U.S. dollar. They continued to use their printing press to print up the money and get the things they want for essentially no cost to themselves. And this became a problem over time because other countries that had their gold on reserve with the United States government and its various different supposed storage facilities, they started noticing that the United States was getting an unfair benefit. It was printing a lot of money, basically, and they weren't even sure that their gold was even going to get returned to them, because the United States had to also control the price of gold on international markets, and that's what the Exchange Stabilization Fund was about. It was about buying and selling currencies all over the world, managing the dominance of the U.S. dollar, and one of the ways that was achieved was by battering down the price of gold, controlling the exchange rate between gold and the dollar. But like they usually do, they started, being shady and not exactly being forthright and honest. And other countries started noticing this, and they started asking for their gold back. Like I believe it was France who first asked for the redemption of their gold. And this caused kind of a crisis because, well, the United States couldn't just give back the gold. It may not have even had it. Again, in order to protect the value of the dollar, they had to be selling gold in order to drive the price down. And that, lessened the gold stocks of the United States. So, but it came to a head when Nixon basically took us off the gold temporarily suspended the gold window, nothing more permanent than a temporary government measure. Because after that point, we went off the gold standard. The exchange rate of the dollar to gold was no longer maintained at a fixed rate, and it was allowed to appreciate. So back then it was like $35 US dollars for an ounce of gold, and now it's $1,265. And again, that's even that price is the paper price that's subject to all the battering and manipulation of the Exchange Stabilization Fund and its various manipulating entities like the New York Fed and Citadel and the high frequency robot traders. So, the Exchange Stabilization Fund, source of all this, confiscated wealth, used by the empire to manipulate markets and provide a black budget for all of their illicit activities, terrorizing the world. One of the consequences is that if you just print up a whole bunch of money, you have to find ways to take them out of the banking system, at least here in the United States, here in the West, so that it doesn't drive up the price of things and cause, an uprising because people can't afford food anymore. So they had to come up with a way to get money out, get the dollars out of the banking system and essentially send them overseas. And one of the main ways that they thought of to do that, to how do we get Americans to not put money in the banking system, but to take it out as cash and spend it on something that'll lead to that money just going out of the country and probably not coming back before it's laundered, at least. And, well, they came up with drugs, all right? So the CIA has been moving heroin and cocaine, as many people know, for a long, long time. But one of the things that people don't understand is that it's not just for the purpose of weakening the culture. It's not just for the purpose of, providing sources of funds from the drug sales. It's actually just as much about taking those dollars and sending them out of the banking system and out of the country. Okay, so all of the money that Americans, where cocaine appears on the scene in the 80s, and all of a sudden Americans are taking out, all this money and spending it on cocaine. Same thing for heroin. Basically, every single day there's hundreds of millions of dollars, being transacted for people buying their daily dopamine fix and getting their heroin. And all of that money, most of it goes right to the CIA itself. And specifically it goes to their intermediaries in other countries, right? So the producers of drugs, the producers of the heroin in Afghanistan, the producers of the coca in Peru and other South American countries. Not Colombia anymore, actually. It's more Peru, because Colombians, they don't want anything to do with that plant anymore. They've been at war with, that plant for 50 years, and, so their government's cracked down. All the coke's gone to Peru. But that's a side point. The point is, Americans spending all this money on drugs takes the dollars out of the banking system, out of the country, so prices don't rise as they normally would with all of this money just being printed. Okay, so, they also deal in arms, of course, just by these illicit rat lines, that the Clintons are involved in. All these people in high levels of government, they're actually not just involved in this drug trafficking and this human trafficking and all this stuff. I mean, they're scumbags for sure. That much we've established. But there's actually a national security directive that underpins all of this, okay? So in Mena, Arkansas, when the Clintons were bringing up all this cocaine, this was basically, this was them in their small-time operation. And, it's not like the Clintons came up with this whole idea of trafficking all this drugs. They were essentially working as agents of the empire, and they were getting paid as political operatives to look the other way and provide cover for CIA operations bringing those drugs into the country. Oliver North basically was the one smuggling it, not necessarily the Clintons, but of course the Clintons were involved as the cover. And that is essentially what they have evolved their operation to, a global level with the Clinton Global Initiative, giant slush fund. People donate money to the Clinton Global Initiative, and all of a sudden all these political favors get thrown their way. But they're also operatives in the sense of their political cover for the rat lines that George Webb has been absolute champion in bringing to light, and many other people. This is a global effort. Definitely, and that's what's so beautiful about it, and why this boiling point is not going, the water's not going to cool down. It's going to keep boiling, and until some major changes are achieved. And the people who run the system, the powers that be, they know that very well right now, and they are terrified. And that just brings pure blissful joy to my heart to know that they are running and scared and shitting their pants, because they know that people like me, just random, hippies on YouTube, are talking about the Exchange Stabilization Fund and letting the world know how the empire operates with impunity to make the people of this world suffer for their own financial benefit and for their own gratification as rulers of the world. But it's over. It's over. Your game is up. I'm here to tell you that. And I'm not going to let up, and neither are the rest of the resistance here on this planet. Not the resistance to Trump. Trump is part of the resistance, to you fools. And you know what? We're going to drive this thing home to Valhalla. And I hope that you know that, because if you want to play some last-minute desperate Hail Mary play to try and get us all in a false flag, to corral us into whatever crazy fascist program you have waiting in the wings, we're already too awake. It's not going to work. You're totally fucked, and you better understand that and come to the negotiating table and realize that otherwise it's going to be the Nuremberg trials 2.0. So that's my main message today. Basically, Bitcoin, not necessarily being manipulated by the empire right now, but the potential for that exists in the future via the Exchange Stabilization Fund for the same reasons that they do it to gold. If Bitcoin becomes a threatening alternative to the financial system based on the US dollar under their control, it's very possible that they might, these billions of robot trading might come into the Bitcoin market and even operate at a loss potentially, simply just selling Bitcoins for the purpose of driving the price down. But none of that is going to change the fact that the Asians are pouring money into it. It's legalized in Japan. China's capital controls are just, making more and more Chinese money thrown into it. Russia's getting online, and a whole new system is being birthed right now. It's absolutely exciting, and it's a beautiful thing to witness. So, as long as we keep speaking the truth and operating in good faith to restore this planet to a paradise, it's all going to be just fine. And I just wanted to bring you guys some truth today to help you out in that quest. So, I'll see you next time. Cheers.